My name is Rachel, I'm 24, and the truth is, I wasn't supposed to be here. At least, not like this. 3 years ago, my life split into two halves, the person I was before the accident, and the person I had to become afterward. If you've ever had your life change in an instant, and had to depend on people you weren't sure you could truly trust, you'll understand why I'm telling this story. Stick with me, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and drop a comment about the biggest red flag you think I might have missed. It was late January, a night when the roads looked clear but weren't. I was driving home from my shift at the diner, my little Honda humming along like it always did. Then, in an instant, the car skidded on black ice. I remember the sound before anything else, the sharp screech of metal folding in on itself. Then the guardrail. Then silence. I woke up in the hospital, blinking into harsh lights, my body wrapped in plaster and stitches. The doctors spoke in careful tones. "You'll recover," they said, "but it won't be easy." I was 21, bruised, broken, and suddenly dependent on everyone around me. I couldn't even make it to the bathroom without help. My independence, the thing I'd always been proud of, was gone in one night. That's when my parents stepped in. They told me I didn't have to worry about anything except healing. My mom moved a bed into the living room so I wouldn't have to climb stairs. My dad started handling the paperwork, the endless insurance forms, the bills, the calls with lawyers. My brother Jason dropped by sometimes, always with a half smile that looked more like pity than love. The accident wasn't just a medical crisis. It came with lawyers and paperwork, meetings with people in suits who spoke in a language I didn't fully understand. They talked about compensation, about settlements, about making sure my future was taken care of. I was too tired, too overwhelmed, to follow every detail. I remember my father's hand on mine in one meeting, his voice steady. "Let us handle this, Rachel. You just focus on getting better." And at the time, that's exactly what I did. The money, the settlement, was something I didn't even want to think about. It felt almost dirty to be paid for pain. I told myself it was a safety net, nothing more. Something my parents would hold on to while I learned how to live again. The first year blurred past in therapy sessions, doctor's appointments, and long, sleepless nights. I learned how to walk with a limp, how to manage pain, how to adapt to a body that didn't feel like mine anymore. Through it all, my parents reassured me that the future was safe, that the hard part was temporary. But if I'm honest, even then, there were moments that didn't sit right. Jason seemed to have more than he used to. New clothes, new gadgets, a car that didn't look like it belonged to a man working part-time shifts. My mother brushed it off when I asked. My father told me not to worry. And for a while, I believed them. Because in those early days, I had to. What else could I do? Recovery is not dramatic, it's slow, frustrating, and lonely. Most days, it felt like my body was a stranger I had to bargain with just to get through the morning. I measured progress in inches. One less pill, one extra step, one stair climbed without help. Through it all, my parents repeated the same phrase, "Don't worry about the rest." At first, I clung to those words. I wanted to believe them. But small cracks started to appear, little details that didn't quite fit together. It began with the therapy center. After one session, the receptionist asked if I could update my payment information. I frowned, confused. "It should already be covered," I said. She gave me a polite smile, the kind that says she doesn't want to embarrass you. "We've had some delays," she explained. Nothing urgent, but it would be good to check in. When I mentioned it to my father later, he waved his hand. "Just bureaucracy. These things take time." My mother chimed in, "You don't need to stress yourself, Rachel. Stress slows healing." I let it go. At least, I told myself I did. Then there was Jason. My brother had always lived like the world owed him something, drifting from job to job, girlfriend to girlfriend. Suddenly, he was driving a brand new car, one that smelled of leather and still had dealer plates. He posted photos online of dinners at restaurants I couldn't dream of affording before the accident, even when I was working double shifts. I remember asking him about it one evening as we sat at my parents' table. "New car, Jace?" He grinned, not looking up from his phone. "Yeah, things are finally turning around for me." My mother jumped in before I could say more. "Jason's working so hard lately. We're proud of him." I glanced at my father. He kept his eyes on his plate. That was the first time I felt the unease settle in my stomach, heavy and stubborn. But what was I supposed to do? I was still living under their roof, still leaning on them for rides to appointments, still eating their meals. It felt ungrateful to question. So I stayed quiet. But I started to notice everything. The way my mother would change the subject if money came up. The way Jason avoided my eyes when he flashed a new watch, or when his phone buzzed with messages from friends making plans I wasn't invited to. The way my father grew shorter with me when I asked even simple questions about bills. It was subtle. A whisper of something wrong, not yet a scream. But I've learned something in those months of recovery. You can ignore pain for a while, numb it, push it aside. Eventually, though, it demands to be faced. And I was beginning to suspect the worst pain waiting for me wasn't in my body, it was in the truth they weren't telling me. By the second year of recovery, I had grown stronger. Not perfect, not whole, but steadier on my feet. Enough that I could start asking sharper questions without worrying about sounding ungrateful. The first crack widened during a routine appointment. My physical therapist, a woman named Laura who had guided me through the worst of the pain, leaned on her desk after one session. She hesitated before speaking. "Rachel," she said softly, "are you sure your coverage is up to date? We've had a hard time processing payments on your account." My face went hot. "It should be. My dad's handling it." She gave me a look I couldn't quite name, part sympathy, part warning. "Just check, okay? It's important." That night, I brought it up over dinner. My father snapped his napkin down onto his plate. "For God's sake, Rachel, can't you trust me to manage one thing? Do you want to drown in paperwork again?" My mother's voice followed quickly, sharp and protective. "She doesn't need the stress. She's still healing." Jason stayed quiet, smirking into his phone. I swallowed my anger and let the subject drop, but my suspicion was awake now, pacing restlessly in my chest. A week later, the mail brought another clue. An envelope addressed to me, thick with official lettering. My mother snatched it off the counter before I could grab it. "Oh, that's nothing important." "I'll file it," she said too quickly, already sliding it into the drawer where they kept bills. That was the moment I started paying close attention. I began keeping my own notes, dates, conversations, little slips of paper I managed to intercept before they disappeared. Nothing made sense. I was supposed to have security. Instead, bills were piling and my parents grew tighter, more defensive, each time I asked. Meanwhile, Jason was glowing. He'd traded the car for a newer one, started wearing tailored suits to dinners, even though the only job I knew he had was consulting, whatever that meant. He started talking big about investments, about opportunities, about how the family was finally moving up in the world. One night, I asked him directly, "Jason, where's all this coming from? The trips, the car, the clothes." He grinned. "Don't worry about it, Rach. Things have a way of working out when you've got support." Support. That word stung. It felt deliberate, like he was dangling a secret just out of reach. That night, lying in bed, I thought about the night of the accident. The sound of metal folding, the guardrail, the way my body refused to obey me when I woke up. I'd assumed that was the worst moment of my life. But slowly, piece by piece, I began to realize the real wreckage wasn't what happened on the road. It was happening right here, under my parents' roof. And sooner or later, I would have to face it head-on. It happened on a Tuesday, the kind of day that doesn't warn you it's about to change your life. I had driven myself, carefully and slowly, to the pharmacy. It was one of my small victories, no crutches, just my uneven gait and the stubborn pride that carried me into the store. When I got home, there was an envelope sitting on the kitchen counter. My mother must have set it there absent-mindedly before rushing off to meet a friend. The return address was from the bank. My name was on the label. I stared at it for a long time. For months, I'd let them tell me not to worry. For months, I'd accepted half answers and clipped excuses. My hands shook as I slid a knife under the flap. The statement inside made my stomach lurch. The account balance was a fraction of what it should have been. Line after line of withdrawals, large sums, thousands at a time, made to cash. Others transferred to accounts I didn't recognize. The settlement that was meant to last me for years of care and support was bleeding out fast. My legs wobbled as I sat down at the table, the paper trembling in my grip. For the first time, I couldn't deny it anymore. This wasn't bureaucracy. This wasn't error. This was theft. I shoved the envelope into my bag just as Jason came strolling through the door, whistling, keys swinging from his finger. His car outside was different again, sleeker, newer. "Nice ride," I said, trying to keep my voice level. He grinned, tossed the keys on the counter. "You like it?" Leasing it was nothing. "I've got backing now. Real security." Backing. Security. The words landed like blows. When he disappeared upstairs, I opened the envelope again and traced my finger over the numbers. My parents had signed as my guardians when the settlement came through. I hadn't even questioned it at the time. I was broken, dependent, too tired to fight. I had believed them when they said they were protecting me. But now, staring at the proof, all I could think was that they had protected Jason instead. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my desk with the bank statement under a lamp, my mind racing. Memories kept looping, the receptionist asking about missed payments, my father snapping at me for asking questions, my mother whisking away letters before I could read them. It all fit now. The truth pressed down on me, heavy and undeniable. The money meant to secure my future had been drained for my brother's comfort. And my parents had been in on it every step of the way. For years, I had relied on them, trusted them, believed their words when they told me not to worry. But now I knew the truth. And with that truth came a new, sharper clarity. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was holding evidence. And soon, I'd use it. Courtrooms are colder than you expect. Not the temperature, though the air conditioning was sharp enough to sting, but the atmosphere. People speak in clipped words, shuffle papers, avoid each other's eyes. It isn't a place for warmth. It's a place for truth stripped bare. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my lawyer beside me, the bank statements stacked neatly in front of us. Across the room sat my parents and Jason. My mother looked pale, her hair pinned too tightly. My father's jaw was locked, but his hands betrayed him, fingers tapping nervously against the table. Jason leaned back in his chair, dressed in a designer suit, as though arrogance alone could protect him. When the judge called the case, my heart hammered so loudly I thought everyone could hear it. This was it. The moment my family's betrayal would no longer be whispers behind closed doors. My lawyer started with the facts. The settlement amount. The guardianship papers my parents had signed. The intended purpose of the funds, my medical care, my rehabilitation, my future stability. And then, the withdrawals. Line after line of money siphoned away, none of it for my therapy or needs. He slid the documents forward. "Your Honor, the evidence shows a clear pattern of misuse. Funds intended for Rachel's survival were funneled into unrelated expenses, including, we believe, Mr. Jason Turner's personal lifestyle." Jason scoffed audibly, earning a sharp look from the judge. My father stood to speak, his voice measured but thin. "We did what we thought was best for our family." Jason was struggling. Rachel was managing. "We believed it was temporary." "Temporary?" my lawyer repeated. He lifted another page. Nearly $200,000 in withdrawals. Vacations, vehicles, luxury goods. None of this resembles temporary assistance. It resembles exploitation. I looked at my parents then, really looked. My mother's eyes darted away from mine, full of shame she couldn't voice. My father's face remained stone, but his shoulders sagged. Jason stared at the ceiling as if this was all beneath him. When it was my turn to speak, I rose slowly. My leg ached, the limp obvious. I didn't hide it. I let them see what years of therapy and surgeries had left me with. This settlement wasn't a gift, I said, my voice steady. It was compensation for pain that will follow me for the rest of my life. It was meant to cover surgeries I still need, therapy I still rely on, stability I may never fully reach. I trusted my parents to protect it while I was too broken to protect myself. Instead, they gave it away to my brother, who treated my suffering like a windfall. I can't get back what I lost in that accident. But I won't let them take my future too. The courtroom was silent when I finished. Silent, except for the sound of Jason shifting uncomfortably in his chair. By the time the gavel struck, the decision was clear. The court ordered the return of all remaining funds, plus restitution. My parents were removed as guardians of the account. Control was placed solely in my hands. As I left the courthouse, the sunlight felt different. Brighter. Warmer. My parents trailed behind me, smaller than I'd ever seen them. Jason stormed off, muttering about fairness, as though fairness had ever been his concern. I didn't look back. For the first time since the accident, I felt steady, not just on my feet, but in my life. They had stolen from me, betrayed me, underestimated me. But in the end, I took back everything that was mine. And I did it in silence, with nothing more than the truth. If you've ever had to fight the people you thought you could trust most, you know what that victory feels like. Subscribe to this channel, hit like, and tell me in the comments, what moment do you think my family realized the courtroom wasn't going to save them? I'll be reading.